We have to, if we're going to be spiritual leaders, you got to die. You got to die. You got to die to cursing. You got to die to sexual promiscuity. You got to die. Everything that your flesh desires, some people got to die to overeating. Just eat just because it's food. And just keep eating. That's a sin. You got to die to it. Everything, you got to die to lying. You want to tell a lie to get out of it, but you got to die. You got to decide, I'm not going to lie. Spiritual leaders are those who are dead to the flesh. He says to them, he says, look, watch this. Jesus says, are you sure you want to drink this cup? I wish I could have been there to see his face. Like when they asked him, he was just like, you sure you want to drink this cup? What cup? Remember when Jesus was at the Last Supper, he said, this is the cup of my blood that shall be shed. He says, if you want to be with me in the kingdom, you sure you want to drink that cup? Are you sure that you're willing to die to be in the kingdom with me? And watch this. They answered him and said, yeah, we do. They was like, yeah, we want that cup. And watch what Jesus says to them, and you're going to get that cup too. Jesus knew that those two disciples that he was talking to, both of them died, were killed for the gospel. Both of them died. James in Acts chapter 2, in Acts chapter 12, Herod had him killed with a sword. And then when we go to John, we go to Revelations 1 and 9, he too was killed. Both of those disciples ended up dying for the gospel. Are we willing to die? And I'm not talking about a physical death, but if it came to a physical death, are you really there? Jesus says, if you really want to be a spiritual leader, are you really willing to die? Are you willing to put your faith out there so far that if they said, we'll kill you if you talk about Jesus, what you going to do? Those kids in the Columbine, many of them died because of their faith. They got shot. The boy stood over the girl with the gun and said, you a Christian? Because if you are, I'm going to kill you. She had one choice. She could have said no, and he would have walked away. She looked at him and stared at the barrel and said yes. And he pulled the trigger and shot her in the head. I wonder about me. I wonder if somebody was standing over me with a gun and said, are you a Christian? I wondered. What would I do? What would I say? Is this real to me? Or is this just a game? Am I really a spiritual leader? Or is this just something I'm playing around with? That little girl, Cassie, looked at that gun and said, yeah. And he shot her in the head. And then he turned to her friend Rachel and said, you too. And then shot her. What about us? Would we say, no, man, I'm a Muslim. Assalamu alaikum, got some big bags. When we start chanting, no, you ain't gonna take, I'm a Buddhist. What would we do in that kind of situation, you all? Listen, if we're going to be, if Berean Covenant is going to be spiritual leaders, we have to be willing to die. We've got to be willing to die. You got to die in your spirit first. You got to die to fleshly desires first. And then also be willing to possibly physically die. I don't believe that God would cause us to physically die today. I believe that he covers us. But we got to be willing to die to our flesh. We can't cuss people out. We can't roll our eyes. We can't get attitude. We can't get mad. We can't get... We just have to be able to live a different kind of life. So that, watch this, so that people will look at you and go, that's a spiritual leader. That's a spirit. Because I know that he's mad. I know she's mad. But it didn't even affect them. They just walked off. I could follow somebody like that. Because I'm struggling and I'm trying to live a better life of Christ. So I can follow them. That's how you become spiritual leaders. It's when you're in McDonald's and the girl gets your order wrong 5 times and you don't get mad. 5 times they don't give you your order right. 5 times your stuff is jacked up, and instead of you getting mad, ready to throw the coat back at her because you ordered a Sprite 4 times, you just like, I'm cool. Can you please just go get the manager? You know, but you don't get mad, you don't get upset. And so the people around you who are watching that, they begin to grow. They're like, man, I want to be like him. Because you know, you always got that one person on the side like, I would have cussed her out. I would have let her have, and so you chilling. And so now that person is looking at you like, man, how did you do that? And then you're able to say, it wasn't me. It's the Christ in me. And that leads them to Christ. Point number two. He says, watch this. If Berea Covenant Church is going to be spiritual leaders in our community, we've got to trust God to get there. Sitting on my right side and my left side, Jesus says, it's not for me to grant. He says, it's not my job to grant that. These places belong to those whom the Father is preparing. Somebody in here, God is preparing you to sit on Jesus' right and left side. The Bible talks about the 12 disciples, that there are 12 tribes of Israel. And it talks about the fact that Jesus will sit in the middle and the 12 tribes will sit on his right and left side. And so somehow we are connected to one of those tribes. We somehow are going to be connected to that. And so then that will determine who sits on what side. And then the Bible also talks about the fact that that when you get there, there's going to be sheep and there's going to be wolves on either side. And the sheep will be coming in and the wolves will be released to go to hell. We have to determine. God determines what side we're sitting on. Jesus acknowledges the fact, you all, that the kingdom is run by God. And he decides who sits where. If we're going to get anywhere, I'll tell you this. Look at your neighbor, tell him, kiss God butt. Kiss God butt. Yep. If God had a butt and I wanted to get ahead in life, I'm kissing his butt. I ain't kissing. I don't have to kiss the butt of a man to try to get ahead. I don't have to kiss the butt of my boss. If God had a butt, his butt would be the butt that I would kiss. As a matter of fact, people would be looking at me like I'm retarded because I'll be walking down the street going all the time. Hey, what you doing kissing God's butt? Because God is the one who has total control of what happens in your life. And so if I'm going to kiss somebody's booty, if I'm going to hang out with somebody, if I'm going to just go overboard, I'm going to do it with God. Everybody just kiss God's butt right now. Just go, yeah. All right, those of y'all that do it, you ain't getting it. You're not going to get ahead. He says, listen, you all, that God decides who sits where. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not to your own understanding. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean to what you think is supposed to happen. He says, in all your ways acknowledge God and he will direct your path. Trust in the Lord. He controls it all. Why in the world would I trust in people when God runs everything? Trust in the Lord. The third point, last point, Jesus makes here is in verse 26. He says, if Berea Covenant is going to be spiritual leaders in the community, we have to be a servant to everybody else. Look what he says in verse 26, y'all. This is the meat of this text. In verse 26, he says, it is not this way among you, but whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant. You all, if it's our desire to be a great church, if it's our desire to be the greatest church in this community, and that's okay. It's nothing wrong for you desiring to be great. God will not have you walk around saying, I really don't want to be great. I really would just rather be a bum. And I just do. No, that's not God. God is not saying to you, walk around talking about, I would just rather be broke and be a bum and just standing on street corners. And there's some people who have made a whole religion around this I don't want anything, and if I get money, I'm going to give it away. And that's stupid. That's really dumb. That is not God. Don't ever let nobody tell you that because you got a nice car that you're not serving God. That's dumb. But that's just really stupid. Like, I'm going to give my car back. Like, I don't want it.